Greetings and welcome to quick nested loop comparison in Python. So we're going to use list as examples, but it could be a bunch of different things as we'll kind of talk about. But the point is to take this data and compare it to this data to see if there's anything new. So this could apply to, let's say this is off of another file or something, right? You grab this data off another file. Someone's like, hey, these are all of our books plus the new ones we got. And you're going to compare, hey, here are the books I have in my database. I need to grab the new ones and put them in, right? So again, you'd open the file, you could loop through them. But for now, I'm just going to say, hey, this is how the data came in from that file. It is the book, comma, the SKU. So let's first essentially loop through this, and then we're going to go and check and loop through these to see if these items are inside of the already list. And if not, we're going to add them, or at least explain the concept to adding it. Because the point is being able to loop through this and then check to see if we need to add them again. So this is just one way to do it, so keep that in mind. So we're going to do our for I in range, and then let's get the length of all books. All right, we're going to get the length of this, because we're going to loop through it. All right, so now we are looping through this, right? That's where we're at. The next piece we're going to do is we need to split this, right? Because we need to be able to check the book versus the SKU, and right now this is together, right? So we'll get and pretend that's how it came in from a file or whatever, but I want to be able, so you could see it, have it already here. Again, wherever you're getting this data from, a database, from another file, wherever, the point is to be able to look through it and see. So let's do this, what's called a book split, right? And then we're going to equal all books I, right? Because we're going to split each one as we go through it, and then dot split, parentheses, and then we're going to split on the comma. All right, so now we split it. So 0 is book, and 1 is, so book split 0 is book 1, and book split 1 is the SKU. All right, now here's another key thing. What we're going to do in order to be able to add to this and make sure we don't add too much is we're going to create something to hold if it's already in this list or not. So incur books, and this will make more sense in a second, equals 0. Because right now we're saying that this book is not in there, right? Because we have to do our logic first. We're not going to say it's in there. We're going to check our logic first. So in 0. Now let's go ahead and we need to loop through this, right? Because we have these. We need to loop through this and check, is it here? Is it here? And that's why we have this. Otherwise, we get a bunch of different results. And I'll explain that as we go through this next loop. So for j, because we already used I, in range. Now we're going to get the length of this one. So, and we can just pick one of them, right? Because they're going to be the same. So let's just do cur books, lang cur books. All right, so now we're looping through this one. So we're here, and now we're going to start looping through here. And then we'll go to this one, and then we'll loop through here. And then we'll go to this one, and then we'll loop through here. So with that, delete some of the stuff. Let's go ahead and do our if statement, right? So if cur SKU, right? Now remember, I did this length, but these are the same, right? So book 1 is this one, book 2 is this one, right? And this is just one way as an example. If you had a couple of arrays or get in from a database to separate arrays, however you're doing it, right? This is just examples. Hopefully you can apply them back and forth as needed. But for this one, let's get J. All right, so we're going to do book 1 first. All right, book 1 first, so 0, and then book 2 on the second time we loop through it. And then equals, and these are strings, right? This is an int already, but if it's not, you'd have to do that as well. But these are all strings, right? So we have to go int book split and then 1, right? And that's because this is book split 0 and this is book split 1, right? So 0 is the book name, and then 1, right? 1 is the SKU. So we're comparing against the SKU, so that's why we have that. So if this equals this, we already have that book, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to print that it's a current book. So we can see that print, and this, we know this is a current book. right? So no is the current book. And just again, how we write this doesn't matter. I could spell out current, but I don't want to. So, and then book split 0 is the name of the book, right? So this will print current book 1 because we already have it. And I'll run this in a second, but current book 1 because we already have current book 1. And then we're going to put in, right, or in current books, paste it, equals 1 because it is in there, right? This is saying it's not in there. We just proved it is in there, so we want to do that. Again, in a second, we'll see what it wants. But we're in this for loop right now. So we don't want to be adding or changing anything. We want to know it's a current book, and then we want to do nothing with it, right? It's a current book, so we don't want to do anything with it. So we'll go ahead and hit enter, get out of the if statement, get out of the for loop, right? All this is doing is checking to see if it's a current book. Now we're going to do if in, actually I think I already have it saved, right? Yep, so pasting that in cur books equals 0, right? Because that means it's not in there, right? So book 1 would have been checked to 1. Book 2 would have come up as this. Book 3, though, when we loop through book 3, it's 0. It's not in here, so it never becomes 1. So therefore, it's 0. So therefore, it's going to go ahead and be in there. Now, this is pretty much the spot where all the stuff has to happen. So everything you need to do. So if you need to add it to the current database, you do it in this if statement, right? If you need to add new files, create new files for the new book, right? You had a file for book 1, book 2, like info on each of them. This is where you would do it, right? This is where it all happens because this book is not in there, right? So now I'm not going to, you could do the append array. You need to append both of those. I'm just going to kind of show you stuff by print statements. So let's go ahead and just print that this is a new book, right? So print new book. And then we're going to put the name of the book, right? So we already said that this is this. But again, so this is, when it prints, is going to print book 1. And then this is going to be a 1, so this is not true. So it comes back up. We're on book 2, so 0, book 2 is in the list, right? So book 2 is in the list. So it's a 1, so it doesn't go here, and that's why you see these two printed off. And then we go back up, and now we're on book 3. Book 3 comes in here. It loops through. Book 3 is not book 1. It's not book 2, so it never becomes 1. So now it's 0, so therefore that's why book 3 is new book. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and print added. Right, and this is where you can concatenate stuff, right? So we're going to put the whole entire thing together. So added, and then plus book split 0, right? Because that is the name of the book. Plus, and then we're just going to give it some spacing, dash, and then SKU, colon again. We're just doing some concatenation. And then this time we're going to print it, but we're going to put 1. So this is added, book 3, SKU, and the SKU for it. So when we run this, we should still get this data, right? So I'm going to save it, I'm going to run it, and I add an extra equal sign over here. Oh, that's why I was doing it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and delete that just to make it look pretty, right? But again, that's it. Added, book 3, SKU, right? So this is where you do the magic. I'm just printing so we can see that it would happen, but this is where I could add this to this with append. I could add this to this with append. I could take this information together and concatenate it and put that information into a text file if I wanted to do, right? So again, whatever you want to do, the point is having an external thing with everything, right? This has all of the information. Maybe there's, I've seen stuff where HR has all the personnel in a big old file and keeps all of them in there, right? All the people are in there and they can add and delete. And basically what you do is you go back in and you check your internal system to see, this is just a spreadsheet with new hires as they onboarded and people get off, they just update it there. And then this will go into the IT books, right? The IT books, and be like, all right, how does IT match up with it? And in this case, there's a new employee, so it'll add it to the database, add files, logins, and whatever, as an example, right? So there's two things to look at. Pretend this was a file. You could just loop through the file here, and again, if depending how the file is written, it's a CSV, you can split it here and just keep track of which part of it is, right? I've seen a script used like that in PowerShell, but this is how you do it in Python. So hopefully that helps. Run again so it makes pretty. And that's about it, right? That's how you do some nested loops, so you can compare everything, and then also keep track of if you already did it right. Because if we didn't do this, if we did the add everything, well then it basically, when you go to book 1, it's like, well, book 1 is not book 2, so add book 2 to 3. I mean, the thing would get really big if we didn't actually do this, right? So this is a version of the logic you can use to get through it. Just be careful when you're doing the nested loops that you do have this concept of, hey, is it in this inner loop? And if it's not, don't do it in that inner loop, right? If I move this if statement in that inner loop, it's gonna break, right? And I'm not gonna go into the full details of how it's gonna break. That's probably for another video. But with that, have a good one. See you guys later.